Hey folks, welcome to the Green on Green Show. I'm John Green and I'm here today with Tiffany Smith, my co-host. And we've got an action-packed show for you today. Tremendous amount of things we're going to wrap all into water conservation. Got just numerous items, everything from green roofs to rainwater harvesting on down the line. So really excited about that. But before we get into that, we'd like to talk just a little bit about some upcoming shows. Here in the next several weeks, we're going to be going out and we're going to be doing a couple remote shows on some of our eco-green communities that we've got here in the greater Asheville area. We're going to hop out to the villages at Crest Mountain. That is a LEED certified development. I love that project out there. We're going to do a whole show on the villages at Crest Mountain. And we're also then going to go over in West Asheville and do one show at the Vistas at Westfield, which is another eco-green community I can't say enough about. So very excited about that. And just wanted to talk just briefly, if you're in the process of building or buying a green home, how important it is to work with an eco-green realtor or a consultant at a bare minimum to help you out with this process, because there's so much to understand about either building or buying a green home that you really need to be working with a professional to make sure that you do get the highest quality, most energy efficient green home and the best value for your money. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there to the audience, something to think about. Don't try to do this stuff alone. There is quite a bit to it, and you really need to get some experts in the field, to help you out with these type things. So with that, let's kind of ease on into water conservation. And I'm going to let Tiffany kind of lead us into that today.
All right. Well, thank you, John. And I will just hop right in because I do have a lot of slides queued up, because some of the techniques we're going to talk about today to conserve water in the residential context are perhaps not frequently employed. So we're going to talk about things like green roofs and water harvesting, rain gardens, gray water, composting toilets, all kinds of alternative things that go pretty nicely in the natural building category, but you often don't see them as much in a municipal setting because some of the city codes don't yet allow some of these technologies. In other cases, they certainly do, and some are very easy to start using in your own home context. So why don't we start by pulling up a couple of slides that we have in the very beginning. This is outlining what we use in our home. So we've got bathing being a pretty good part of our water consumption in our home. But look at that, the toilet actually, and this is a European slide, so it's considered a water closet. So flushing of the toilet, that's a lot of water we use just flushing our toilet. And potable water, it's a very valuable resource. And so there again you see a smaller portion for food preparation, laundry, gardening and car washing, and just generally washing your hands. So we're going to focus a lot on the blue section and the light gray section, so the toilet flushing and the washing and bathing, and how we can use some of that water more sustainably. So let's see what we've got for our next slide. Our first topic today is a topic of green roofs. So this is a really beautiful example of kind of a homegrown approach to using growable material on your roof. And this has a lot of succulents here. The idea is to use drought-tolerant species because you're not really going to be getting up there to water them. You're going to rely on the rain to do that. But one of the big reasons about why green roofs can play a bigger role in water conservation is the future. Water just runs off our homes currently and goes right into the sewer systems. And so because of all the concrete, and we can come back to the show here for a second now that everybody knows pretty much what a green roof is, but I wanted to talk to you about that for a little bit because, back in the day, we didn't have this issue of having to deal with storm water runoff. And now, with all of the roads paved and all the sidewalks and all of the non-pervious, concrete driveways and things of that nature, we just have all this rainwater that used to soak back into the soil and recharge the aquifer, now runs off into our sewer systems, has to be treated and then released.
Well, it's a huge amount of energy also, and that's why on any sites, we try to grade everything and set it up where most of the runoff doesn't run off. It stays on the site. Because what happens is, you know, if you've got a concrete driveway, your cars are parked out there, you get some leaks and drips from your oil pan, contaminants get on the driveway, and then when it rains or the water comes off of the eaves of your house, it just washes all of those petroleum-based contaminants. A lot of them are petroleum-based, rushes that stuff down the street. It picks up more contaminants out on the asphalt road, which, you know, asphalt roads are basically petroleum-based. Also picks up all that stuff. Then it goes down into the stormwater gutter. And then, of course, it has to go to a water treatment plant. And there's tons of energy that's then used to clean all those contaminants back out of that water stream so that that water can then be injected back into streams and rivers, you know, basically, and get it back in the system. So that's why we try to keep it all on site, because just as you had indicated, the natural ground, the earth, is the best filter that there is, because the stuff can be filtered down through the earth, and it serves just as a huge filter. And by the time that water then hits the aquifer again, several hundred feet down below, all the contaminants have been filtered out in the dirt, you know, within the earth.
That's right. So I appreciate John giving that exploration into, you know, where our water goes once it hits our roof, and then our driveway, and then the asphalt road. And certainly there's a lot of energy consumed by our municipalities and our governing bodies to treat that water, when here we have all of the resources we need right on our own property. So we can treat that water by planting our roofs with drought-tolerant species. We can hold on to that water and use it more on site. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about these green roofs, and we're going to pick back up on some of these slides. So here's an example of drought-tolerant species. This is a variety of succulents here, so they do not require a lot of water. And as we move forward in the next slide, here's an example of what a green roof system is made of. So at the bottom you see the actual roof decking material, and often a wood substrate of some sort. There's a submembrane layer, and that could actually be, you know, what would otherwise be the final coat of roofing material. Same with the waterproof membrane. On a lot of commercial buildings, you'll see membrane roofs. So here's where the green stuff starts to come in to get ready and handle all that soil load and all that plant material. You've got a drain mat, because it's important for the water that comes down to actually percolate through that soil filter fabric and actually drain off the roof whatever excess is left. But most of the water that hits this roof is going to be absorbed by that upper layer, that plant layer, and then also held in place and absorbed by that soil mix to some extent. So we're talking huge amounts of water that are now going into growing plant material and reducing the carbon footprint. I mean, otherwise that could be a really hot roof context, and adding to the urban heat island effect, which is where there's a lot of concrete in urban areas, concrete and black tar roofs, and they create a hotter environment because of all of that concrete and all that built environment being so close to each other. So this is definitely a movement in cities. People are starting to put green roofs on commercial buildings to reduce the heat island effect. And they're really quite beautiful, and historically they're used a lot in England. Have you ever seen any around North Carolina, Western North Carolina?
I've seen them from afar. I haven't got up close and really studied them. We actually did a small live roof on a playhouse that we had built for United Way about 2 years back, that was auctioned off. We did the green building thing and did a real neat little playhouse, and actually had a shed type live roof on it. But I think it's neat, and like you've indicated, that, you know, it serves a variety of purposes, you know, why you would want to do this. But I would urge the viewers to make sure you know what you're doing, because there are, you know, as we showed the slide, plenty of things to understand about the sealing of the substrate and the membrane, so that you're not just putting water down to wood decking and where you're getting moisture problems and rotting and things going on. And you may even want to once again refer to the Green Building Directory, because there are plenty of resources in our WNC Green Building Directory to point you to the professionals in the area that could handle something like this for you.
That's right, John. And Man, there are a lot of contractors out there who specialize in this kind of service. And so when John says, you know, don't take this lightly, don't just try to plant your roof. I mean, there's a science that goes into protecting a roof structure when you're trying to add plant material to it. And there's a lot of different technologies out there, a lot of different philosophies out there on what the best way to do that is. So it's great to shop around. And they come in different systems. You can either do these rolled out systems, or in some cases there are plants that are already planted in modules that you can install on the roof, and they already come intact with all of the water the materials that protect your roof from this could be water damage. So.
Sure.
Well, why don't we go ahead and move on to rainwater harvesting, our next topic. And this is a way to salvage the water that would otherwise just drain right out of that downspout. This is the most common method. This is called a rain barrel, in case you're not familiar. And one of the most important things about harvesting rain with a rain barrel, I believe I showed in the next slide, is to make sure and have a screen installed. You know, you can't just have a barrel that has no top to it or no lid, because mosquitoes will definitely lay larvae in those barrels, and they will become big mosquito pits. Here's a larger version of rainwater harvesting. Now again, this is just all the rain that hits the roof. It's coming down the gutter system. It would otherwise just go off into the earth, but it's being captured here in what's called a cistern. So have you done any work on projects that involve cisterns?
I have not, but we actually had one of our local green plumbers on the show, George Eford, here, I guess it was last season. And George has done quite a few of these, and in fact, he had called me about a week ago. He is doing some rather large rainwater harvest systems right now as we speak, and also some gray water systems. And I've left George a couple messages because I want to get in touch with him and actually do at least part of a show, or maybe even an entire show. We can go meet with him and look at some of these projects that he's done recently. The first set of rain barrels that were shown on that first slide that we had just shown, you can actually buy that, and I like those rain barrels. They're very nice, very heavy duty, rugged rain barrels. You can actually, no, back one more slide, there we go. You can actually purchase these at one of our local green supermarkets here in the area. I saw those recently, and they had just stacks of those, and I thought it was great that they're making those so readily available to purchase. I think they were like 80 bucks. And really good thing to add those on your house, because you can add those on any house that's got gutters. All you've got to do is chop your gutter off, your downspout, and just put an elbow on it and route it directly to the rain barrel, and you're done. It's a 10-minute project on the weekend. You might have to get an elbow or something from one of your big box stores, to put on there, and you attach the elbow and screw it on. But a 5-minute deal. But yeah, I think they're great.
They are, and don't forget the mosquito netting, because it can really sneak up on you if you have a bunch of mosquitoes lay the larvae there in your rain barrel. Another thing to consider is you may want to set the rain barrel up on blocks so that you could fit a watering can underneath. And then also, the higher you set the rain barrel, the more gravity is actually feeding into a hose. Here's an example of a cistern, and these people aren't messing around. So they are collecting enough water to supply their house, it looks like, if not their entire irrigation system. Here's a way to beautify an existing metal cistern. So, there's all kinds of creative things you can do if you don't find it particularly attractive. And water harvesting is just such a beautiful thing to do because your plants love it. And especially if you're growing edibles in your yard and you're on a municipal supply, there's a lot of chlorine in that municipal water supply. So it's wonderful to use rainwater on those plants.
Well, that's a good point, because getting back to nature, keeping it healthy. A lot of people out there, have the organic gardens, a lot of raised box organic gardens, this, that, and the other. And that's a very good point, that doesn't get any healthier than putting rainwater on your plants.
That's right. Well, speaking of plants and growing gardens, here's an example of rain garden. So this is, instead of harvesting that water in a rain barrel for more specific use, like on a veggie bed, you can route that water to an existing low-lying area in your yard. And so this is an opportunity to take what is otherwise a nuisance area because it becomes really boggy and saturated and makes a big mess. Otherwise, you know, here you can even run these pipes from your downspouts underground or through a dry stream bed, which you'll see there on the left-hand side of the screen. That's coming right down from a gutter, and it's a rock riverbed basically that's man-made, and it flows when the rains are coming and leads down to a depression in the yard. And here's an example of a stream bed that just had some rain, and it's filtering water off into a low-lying depression. So this is what helps save the municipality where you live from having to process all this water and then having to, you know, spend all that energy dealing with it and then finding someplace else to put it.
Now, the one thing I do want to add when we're talking about this slide, this is great to do in your yard away from your house, but I want to caution the viewers, do not put plants all around, you know, right tight up against your house and dump all that water there, because what's going to happen is you're going to get a wet foundation on your house, and that's going to create a lot of problems for you. Recently had the experience of seeing a house here in the area that homeowner didn't know what they didn't know. They had a low-lying area that was very close to the house, and they planted a lot of bushes, junipers and things, and all that did was hold in all the water that drained right down against their basement foundation and caused settling in the foundation as well as mold problems on the inner wall of that house. So there were several different things that happened due to the fact they had planted too much stuff too close to the house and was catching and holding too much water on the face of the house.
And it's always great to remember these basic building science principles. So the gutter systems that are installed on most houses are meant to take water away from the roof and away from the foundation. Those gutter systems are not always properly installed, so it's a good idea to check during a rainstorm to see where the water is even flowing out of your gutters and make sure that it's going away from the home. And I really appreciate, John, that you mentioned that, because there are so many avoidable foundation problems if you just get the water away from the home. And rain gardens are a great way to use that water, but certainly a good, 20 feet easy, away from the home, depending on your slope. But
well, and a lot of people, it's funny, Tiffany, a lot of people do not understand what the real intention of rain gutters are. A lot of people think merely rain gutters are on a house just to keep sheets of water from dumping down and possibly getting somebody wet that's walking in their house, walking in the garage. That's not the intent of gutters at all. The intent is to catch that water that would normally be dumped down right against your foundation, route it through a downspout, and then further route it away from your house and away from your foundation, because water is the #1 problem that's going to cause you trouble if it gets into your house. It doesn't matter if it's in the roof system, in the wall system, especially in the foundation. You want to keep water off and away from your house at all costs.
So important. Well, while we're talking about the idea of saving water, so we've just explored ideas to save the water that enters your property in the form of rain and how we can use that on site. Now, why don't we talk about the water that's used inside? So water that we use that goes down the drain or is flushed down the toilet, and these are two separate categories. If we could just go back to that pie chart for one moment, I really want everybody to understand that there is a huge difference, and it's pretty obvious, but the terms are what is flushed down the toilet is called black water, and what is going down the drain of everything else, your bath, your laundry, your kitchen sink, your bathroom sink, that is all referred to as gray water. So when you hear about gray water systems, these are systems that reuse the water that's coming from these non-hazardous sources, such as your bathtub and your kitchen sink and your laundry. Now you have to remember, in order to reuse some of this water, particularly in the landscape, you need to be using phosphate-free soap products. So, be conscious about what products you're buying in the store when you're expecting to reuse this water. We do have some more slides. Here's an example of what a gray water system might look like. So the water is being captured from these things like sinks and bathtubs and being converted into a holding tank, where it's screened out from particulates and then pumped into an irrigation system perhaps, or in some of our next slides we can see that the sink water, that one's just being pumped directly out of the house or into another adjacent room, such as a bathroom. Here, the water that is coming out of the wall that would otherwise just be going straight into the toilet tank is being used to wash your hands first, and that water that's going down the drain of the sink there is then fueling the tank of the toilet. And so that water is going to be used to flush that toilet. And here again, you have another similar system where the sink water is being used to fill the toilet tank and flush that toilet. You know, there's really no sense in using potable drinking water to flush our toilet.
No, there's not. And I like the toilet design. And I've seen those in some of the eco magazines that I subscribe to on a regular basis. Some of the ones that have the wash basin on top of the toilet so you can wash your hands and that water goes directly down into the tank. There you go. I've actually seen some designs recently made by some of the national manufacturers, and they're a little bit better looking designs than that one. But you know, so those are becoming popular, and I think it's great because we waste so much water washing our hands, brushing our teeth, taking showers. It's just phenomenal. And just to throw that stat out that I always like to throw out on the show, a normal family of four in a 1 year period uses 100,000 gallons of water in a household. That's a large amount of water. And that number is so easy to cut in half to at least 50,000 or below that it's just not even crazy. You can do a couple weekend projects in there that take no time, and you can cut that 100,000 gallons of water usage down to less than 50,000, and you can do it for less than $100.
So let's share with our viewers for a minute what some of those affordable retrofits are to save water in the home.
Absolutely. Well, right here, $5 low flow shower head. You can buy just the head, and in all your showers they've got the same fitting that comes out, and basically you just take some Teflon tape and wrap it and stick a new head on. So we've got low flow heads that you can buy locally for $5. You can then also replace on all of your sinks, I don't know how well this will show up, a little aerator that you can put on all of your sink outlets, fixtures in the house, you know, whether it's in your kitchen, your bathrooms, and this is going to cut the water flow. What it does, it actually restricts the pressure and flow so that you're down to like 0.5 GPM. And so once again, these are $1. You can buy these locally, and if anybody wants to know where, they can email me through the show. But these are $1. The shower heads are $5. Then they sell, I don't have it with me, but they sell a kit that you can change out on any toilet, and they're like $20 at your big box stores, and it's got a different actuator on the toilet, and then you've got a button with 2 buttons, and you can either give your toilet a light flush or you can give it a full flush, because you don't need to give it the full flush all the time. And so once again, that will save 50% on your toilet flushes. So it's very easy, just with a couple simple weekend projects, spend less than $100, and you're going to pay for this stuff in no time and cut your water usage down to, you know, less than 50% of what you were using.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you giving some of those examples. And for those of you who didn't know, gallons per minute is what you can really reduce your gallons per minute that are flowing out of your faucets with these really simple and very affordable aerators. So we invite you to go affix them to all of your faucets and take the time to do it. You'll actually get really excited about saving water, and it's sort of addictive. So why don't we move on to our next section, which is something you don't see too often, but you may have heard of: composting toilets. So you see these more in off-the-grid style living. Perhaps you've seen them in national park settings. They look like that often. So there's basically sometimes as simple as a bucket or some sort of container that has sawdust, and then it's being recycled and composted, typically off-site. Although they do make some pretty high-end ones, which you'll see in the next slide, where they're odorless and they have microbes in them, so you can actually have them in an indoor environment without dealing with some strange odors, and then the compost is made for you right there on the spot, and you just handy, take that drawer out and add it to the garden. Perhaps not. Perhaps it has to stay somewhere else for a while. But it is pretty exciting, the idea of not having to rely on the municipal sewer systems. Certainly more applicable to some areas than others. Again, some of these are technologies that are just not readily available in typical cities because they're not part of the permitting system.
Well, once again, you know, a septic system, and maybe we need to go over that with the viewers at some point, septic system that you have here in the mountains a lot, because a lot of the homes aren't close enough in the county where you're actually on county sewer, so you've actually got a septic system in the house, and all the septic system is a large holding tank, you know, out in your yard, and then you've actually, and it holds the solids, and then you've actually got the liquids that seep out into drain lines that are run, you know, within the yard, and then all that just seeps up through the soil basically. And so it's not a lot of difference. You've got like a miniature septic system, self-contained type thing. And but yeah, there are a lot of alternatives, and I've heard of people with these off-the-grid houses, you know, using the composting toilets.
And when you travel abroad, there's a lot more compost toilets, particularly in South and Central America. It's rather common. And there's a lot of different perspectives out there on whether or not we should be using these municipal sewer lines to manage this kind of thing. So we have another version of an off-the-grid sewer management system. Oh, wait, that's not the incinerating toilet slide I meant to have. Oh, what's next?
Now, was that at a local concert, or where was that?
Lollapalooza, 09. So here we go. Here's an incinerating toilet. And again, these are pretty high tech. So this is taking high heat, and they can either be electric or gas, propane. There's all different styles that these incinerating toilets come in. And that drawer on the bottom, you just pull out, and there are pellets pretty much that look like cardboard that are left over, and they're sterile. So you don't really have to worry about, you know, proper disposal after that point because it's sterile.
Sure.
Material.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the toilet, you know, on an airplane or something. You know, it kind of looked a little bit like that, you know, somewhat.
Yeah, where is all that going, by the way? Do we know?
I don't know.
Doesn't sound like it's going into a holding tank, but maybe it is. Well, John, I'm excited about some of the upcoming shows and some of our on-site. We're going to take the show out of the studio for a few episodes, and we're going to be exploring some of the local, more sustainably developed housing communities here in Western North Carolina. And I'm not sure if you had any other pointers about, you know, what's up and coming, but I'd like to hear about them.
Well, I tell you, I'd like for the viewers to send in what they would like to see on the show. You know, I urge the viewers, email us, you know, ask us questions, ask us things you don't understand relative to green building, because that's what we're here for. We want to spread this knowledge throughout the community and be a resource. Folks, until next time, green on green.
Thanks for joining us.